Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Ripple executive states that Ripple helped grow XRP liquidity to $200 million a day. There's an article on this from AMV Crypto that I'll be running through with you. I've also got some interesting tweets from the XRP community, including somebody who's talking about the concept of the government injecting new money into the U.S. economy, and just positing the idea, would any of that flow through to XRP ultimately and increase XRP purchase? I'm just going to talk about the topic and then just kind of just talk a little bit about conceptually the idea of printing money and what that can do to an economy. Not exactly ideal. But before we get going any further, if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please delicately tap that like button. And if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel because it does a body good. So this first piece, again, is titled, Ripple helped increase XRP liquidity to $200 million a day, says Ethan Beard. Right, a senior vice president of Ripple Spring, Ethan Beard, featured in an interview with Aber CEO Bill Barheit to share the firm's latest developments and announcements aimed at improving the XRP ecosystem. Highlighting the company's focus on delivering simplicity, Beard stated that Spring is primarily developing tools that will make it easy for developers to write code and actually integrate money, being fiat and cryptocurrency, into their applications. Summarizing Spring's ongoing initiatives, he said, quote, "We have a top-down strategy which is working directly with financial institutions, providing them enterprise software that's really customized for their world and lets them tap into the power of XRP." Gotta love that. Furthermore, the entrepreneur spoke of the Ripple MoneyGram partnership, stressing on how it leverages XRP to deliver seamless cross-border payments. Ripple's business changed when XRP liquidity increased, he added. That's not surprising, right? You can do more as the liquidity increases. No kidding. Anyway, owing to Ripple's indulgence in the crypto space, Beard claimed that XRP's liquidity shot up from, check out this, $100,000 a day up to $200 million on any given day. And Beard said, quote, "We, being Ripple, also work close with market makers to make sure there's adequate liquidity for the transactions that are coming through. One of the keys is just not spiking the system where you are moving prices." Yeah, exactly. Fair point there. And I'm glad that they have adequate management here making this all happen. But because you can just think, as if there's a particular corridor, you can cite the there's the U.S. to Mexico corridor, just for example, because Ripple has exchange partners there. There's Bittrex in the U.S. and Bitso in Mexico, and you can imagine, of course, that pretty much all the flows in that corridor, from the U.S. to Mexico, not really so much the other way around, right? And that's by design. This is a corridor that they knew it's big for remittances, and this is what they were targeting in the first place. And so, as it turns out, in a system like this where you're utilizing a cryptocurrency for on-demand liquidity, there can be a need for a shuffling of liquidity. It has to be properly in place, and it has to meet actual demand, which is really a moving target when you're talking about what Ripple's doing in terms of the adoption of all of this cross-border technology, utilizing a cryptocurrency XRP, as a bridge currency for cross-border payments. The target's always moving, and that's why it's such a big deal to open a corridor, not just from a regulatory perspective, but also just making sure that you have all the partnerships in place. It's quite an achievement, And so to me, it's amazing that they're bouncing this and they're finding success right at the gate here. I say right at the gate. They've had the production version of XRapid, now known as on-demand liquidity, for over a year now. But anyway, I just think it's cool stuff. Additionally, Beard highlighted the fact that although XRP will power cross-border payments internally, there's no need for someone to know that there's cryptocurrency involved, something which is quite similar to users sending an email without understanding SMTP. While the value of the Ripple network remains modest, Beard speculated that the network will grow exponentially, as evidenced by the growth of other historical networks, including fax machines. Yes, indeed. And that's one of those things where, Chris Larson, one of the founders of Ripple, has stated, liquidity begets liquidity. Indeed. And it's kind of the similar concept to just what is cited here in terms of growing network effects. As more entities join RippleNet, the value of that network becomes more desirable, and so more join. and then it gets even more desirable. And so then it just kind of gets to a point where it increases, the growth increases at an exponential rate, which indeed we are seeing. Because you can think back to a year ago when Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple CEO, was talking about how they were adding 1 to 2 customers a week on RippleNet, and last I heard, at Swell, it's more like 2 to 3 per week. And so you can see it's already happening. This is going the direction that we and the XRP community were guessing it would go. And to me, that's glorious, fantastic news. So very cool stuff here. All right, next, here is a tweet from Awake. He is at Mr. Level Up on Twitter. And he wrote this: had to create, had to order. This is real life stuff we're talking about here. And there's a picture of this guy wearing an XRP t-shirt, which I liked here. And I had to zoom in to see what it said, so I'll pull it up here. But it says XRP, and it's got these claw marks over the XRP logo there. And it says 2018/2019 Bear Market Edition. And then right here, I don't know if you can see in the small red prints, it says Tough Times. Actually, kind of a cool looking shirt. And you know what's funny to me? This guy on the screen, he wears a lot of shirts apparently. No, I'm just kidding. So this guy, whoever he is, he's just one of the stock models. And then so if you're running your own store where you're creating T-shirts, he's just all over the place. This guy, if you've ever seen anybody selling crypto merchandise, he's wearing everything. Like this guy right here, and not just crypto, just all over the internet. He's just wearing T-shirts. That's it. So that's the stock model, and he's just everywhere. I just thought it was kind of fun anyway. It's like, oh yeah, that guy again. It's just all over the damn place. Next year, this is from Tony Valentino. I just came across this in my Twitter feed and thought I'd share it with you. He retweeted out: there's no real reason for XRP to still be tied to Bitcoin since Ripple has actual utility running through XRP via on-demand liquidity. This is just continued manipulation to force out retail. Ripple is not innocent either, all involved. Okay, well, I can appreciate the sentiment, but I happen to have a different opinion on this. When you wrote, this is just continued manipulation to force out retail. Look, there's whales. If you're talking about manipulation of price, okay, fine, there's some of that going on. But as it pertains to what's going on here, retailers, the reason the price that of altcoins, XRP, pick your coin, I don't care if you're talking about XRP or Ethereum, whatever, the reason it's following the movements of Bitcoin by and large, especially the biggest movements, is because retailers have not parsed out the differences between the coins. So it's not so much that it's the type of manipulation that is making utility unimportant. It's just that the people that are speculating in the space, the retailers that you're saying are trying to be forced out, which I personally don't share that opinion. I just don't see that being the case. It really is. Simply that people haven't figured this stuff out. And that's why I think with the more time passes, ask yourself this question. Do you think more people are in the XRP community today are willing to speculate on the price of XRP based on utility than there were a year ago? Is the answer yes or no in your mind? Because for me, the answer is clearly yes. Utility continues to matter. Like more and more people are getting this, but that's why I keep saying, as you see time pass, I think my hypothesis will play out. And we'll see if I'm wrong. I doubt it, though. But the more time passes, you will see XRP just continue to slowly decouple from Bitcoin to the point where it's just non-existent, essentially. And it's going to take probably a long time to get there. I think that it could be even years. Who knows? What if it's a few years from now and still every time there's a big movement with Bitcoin, XRP reacts? Because eventually I don't think that will be the case. And then that's really what I'm talking about, is getting to the point where Bitcoin tanks and XRP is like, whatever. But right now, it's like if Bitcoin sneezes, XRP may react, and so we'll see. But that's just not just XRP; it's really all the altcoins. But utility matters; it will win the day, and eventually, I think XRP, as if you let this keep playing out, and this is not financial advice, but I suspect that XRP, if nothing changes, things are on just changing then again. But I suspect XRP will end up in the number one spot in terms of market cap here. All right, and here was a tweet from Mart G, who tagged me in one of these. So I found that this was interesting. So thank you for tagging me, first of all. I do appreciate that. And I just want to kind of run through this because there's some interesting points in here. And I thought it would make for a fun discussion in the video. So Mark G wrote this: if the Fed is pumping fiat into the overnight market in the billions, that would make XRP more valuable. I actually look at it a little bit differently. I see where you're going with that. The way that I look at it is it's not that it's making XRP more valuable, it's that it's making the dollar less valuable. That's the way I actually look at it. Because when you're talking about printing of money, like for instance quantitative easing, which was quite rampant a decade ago during the housing market bust, which has tanked the entire world economy essentially. Stocks cratered, like 40% ultimately when that whole thing went down. That was when you hear quantitative easing, just think printing money. That is indeed what it is, and so the way I look at it when that's happening, it's tantamount to a tax on the people. That's it, because there's more dollars. And more dollars going after the goods available to the public. You're talking about what ultimately results from practices like that. It's ultimately inflation. It weakens the value of each individual dollar. So that's why I say it's equivalent conceptually to taxing the people. So you can either print more money so that they have less buying power, or you can tax them. And this is an easier way to do it. It's just print money, and so the government does that, and it's how they manipulate monetary supply anyway. So anyway, and then he also wrote, if they don't want the price to raise too fast, then it makes sense that they keep adding to the available supply to counter the Fed pumping. And they tagged also a digital asset investor and Kevin Cage there. And then Jungle League and the Bearable Bowl in the second one. So anyway, where is all that money really going? If you know you're going to reset the current system, then why not take full advantage of free money? What % of the repo injection is making its way into XRP wallets? And so I wasn't completely certain when you say if you know you're going to reset the system. I wasn't quite sure on who you meant resetting it, to be honest. If you're talking about the United States government, or are you talking about people participating in the world of crypto? I actually wasn't completely sure which way you meant that to be taken. But it's Twitter, it's just not some harsh critique of you. I appreciate interesting thoughts here for sure. I just wasn't sure which way to read it, and it's hard when you have so many characters on Twitter. It's not the best medium for long format conversations, obviously, even though I've tried them many times and engaged in them. But anyway, so it writes then, why not take full advantage of the free money? What percentage of the repo injection is making its way in the XRP wallets? If I had to guess, probably almost none, because I haven't seen any changes in the market on the XRP side, nothing meaningful. And if you look at the volume, because we were talking about, for instance, liquidity the earlier part of this video, I looked at just the 24-hour volume of XRP, in live coin watch, and it was a little over 900 billion, which is where it normally is when there's not crazy amounts of volatility going on. That's typically what I see is about 900 billion. So I really haven't seen a change with any of this. And I guess this repo stuff, the repurchase agreements, that's been going on for a few weeks here. And so I went ahead and pulled this up just for the fun of it. Obviously, quantitative easing, I'm sure many of you are aware of it, and I don't want to get too much off the rails in this video, but I just wanted to talk about this just briefly at least. And so I looked up this article that's titled, "Is Quantitative Easing Money Printing?" Right? And so I found that this is exactly what I was looking for. Just let this register in your brain, okay? So let's understand the basic methods of quantitative easing. In a nutshell, the Federal Reserve or any other central bank purchases long-term bonds from banks and other financial institutions using newly created money. Did you hear that? Newly created money. Now, when we use the term newly created money, we do not mean the feds print a whole bunch of brand new Ben Franklins. That's $100 bills for those of you reading outside of the U.S. Instead, and here's the part that I really wanted to share with you, this one sentence. Instead, the Federal Reserve makes an electronic entry in its computer system indicating brand new money. That's what we're talking about. The electronic ledger, because they've got the keys to it, they're the Federal Reserve, they just change the letters, they just punch it into a keyboard, and bam, there's new money. Think about that. Astonishing. This is conceptually, this is the type of thing that obviously can lead to people being unhappy and inflation ultimately over time. So to me, how many people are a fan of it? It's just pure manipulation, and it's all done. And this is the type of thing that you always hear digital asset investor talking about, and I couldn't agree more. It's not the theme of my channel, so I don't bring it up too much. That's more like something that he kind of focuses on. But I tend to agree with the route that he goes when he's talking about this type of stuff. Because all you're doing is you're preventing a proper reset. And that's along the lines that somebody like Peter Schiff would talk to. And again, I don't want to get too far off the rails, but in case you hadn't heard it presented that way, again, the sentence is, the Federal Reserve makes an electronic entry in its computer system indicating brand new money. That, to me, it's just like, if you haven't heard it stated like that, that's the reason I wanted to pull this up. And then I was going to share a little bit on the repurchase, but I might be getting too far off the rails if I go into this. But basically there's short-term cash injections going here, and when this type of thing is done, this hasn't been done for like the last decade, and so the main point I wanted to make, and just if you want to learn more about this, just look up market repurchase agreements. You can just Google it, but it's just, you haven't seen this in like seriously a decade, and it was when the wheels were falling off the wagon, and so look, and here's the other thing I'll say this, and then I'll wrap up the video. I think that there are lots of bubbles going on there. There's a stock market bubble, there's a housing bubble, there's a student loan bubble, and I don't think any of this is going to end well. And all that's happening with all of this manipulation is the government's just delaying the inevitable, but it's getting to the point where you're not going to be able to prevent this stuff. And then I look at cryptocurrencies. This is the reason I wanted to talk about this, to put it in context, especially as an XRP holder myself, as an XRP community member. I'm looking at all of these bubbles, and then I'm looking at cryptocurrency, which wasn't a bubble 2 years ago. It absolutely wasn't a bubble, but it's not today. It certainly is not today. I don't think that any reasonable person would state that. I think that it will inflate and become a bubble because there's a frenzy around the technology and people don't know what to do with it by and large. But that's why I go back to my investment thesis all the time, which is utility. Utility matters and will win the day. That's it. So we'll see there. But I better wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching, though, and I feel free to comment below on any of this stuff. I definitely appreciate hear any thoughts that you have on this stuff here. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!